Ever wondered how long police in Nigeria can legally hold someone after an arrest? It sounds like a straightforward question, right? But the answer is, well, it's complicated, and it actually depends entirely on where you are in the country. So today, we're going to unpack the different legal clocks that are ticking. Okay, so the starting point, the baseline for everyone, is the Constitution. It says a suspect has to be charged in court within a reasonable time, and that's generally understood to be about 24 to 48 hours. This is your fundamental right to liberty in action. It's the first countdown. Right, but what happens when that 48-hour window is slamming shut, and the police are convinced they have their suspect, but they just need more time to piece their case together? I mean, investigations can be messy. So what's the legal move here? Well, that's where something called judicial remand comes into play. You can think of it as a kind of legal pause button. But, and this is key, it's a pause button that only a judge can press. It's the formal, court-approved way to extend detention. Now, this is absolutely crucial to understand. This is not a punishment. The suspect is still presumed innocent at this stage. Judicial remand is purely a temporary tool to let law enforcement wrap up their investigation before a trial even begins. And this isn't just a rubber stamp, you know? First, the police have to go to a magistrate and formally apply for it. Then, the court has to actually look at the case, the evidence, the reasons, and decide if it's justified. Only if the magistrate agrees does a new countdown officially begin. And here's where things get really interesting. That new countdown, how long a suspect can be held, is not the same everywhere. Not even close. It varies a lot depending on which law applies. We're going to look at three big ones: the federal law, Lagos State, and KANO State. So let's kick things off with the federal law. It's called the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, or the ACJA. This is the one that applies for federal offenses and in places like Abuja. Under the ACJ, the timeline is broken into three neat little chunks. The first remand order is for 14 days. If the police can show a good reason, a magistrate can renew it for another 14. After that, there's a chance for one final 14-day extension, but that's a much bigger deal. So you do the math, 14 plus 14 plus 14. That gives you a total maximum detention of 42 days under federal law. After that point, if the case isn't ready, the court is supposed to let the suspect go. Time's up. All right, next up, let's head over to Lagos State. They have their own version of the law, the ACJL. And believe me, the rules are very different here. And you see the difference immediately. In Lagos, the initial remand order is for 30 days. That's more than double the federal period right out of the gate. After that, it can be renewed for another month, and there's even a possibility for a final extension beyond that if the court agrees. So this brings the total maximum time someone can be held in remand in Lagos to a full 60 days. Just think about that for a second. That is nearly 3 weeks longer than the federal maximum. Okay, for our third and final example, let's check out the law in KANO State, which also has its own ACJL. KANO kind of carves out a middle ground. The initial period is 21 days, so longer than the federal law, but shorter than in Lagos. And that's followed by 2 possible renewals of 14 days each. You add all that up, and you get a total maximum detention period of 49 days. That's a week longer than the federal limit, but still over a week shorter than what's possible in Lagos. Seeing it all laid out like this really drives the point home, doesn't it? Federal law maxes out at 42 days. Lagos jumps all the way to 60, and KANO lands right in the middle at 49. It literally means that the same person suspected of the same crime could be legally detained for almost 3 weeks longer in one part of the country than another. Now, it's really important to know that remand isn't supposed to be a blank check for law enforcement. The system has safeguards built in to protect a suspect's rights during this whole process. So before a magistrate even signs off on a remand order, they have to weigh a bunch of critical factors. You know, how serious is the crime? Are there good reasons to think this person was involved? Is there a risk they might disappear or commit other crimes? It's a serious balancing act, not an automatic yes. But here is a fascinating and really important little twist in the law. Normally, a magistrate court can't grant bail for major capital offenses because they don't have the power to try those cases. However, during these specific remand hearings, the law actually gives the magistrate the power to grant bail, even in those super serious cases. It's a unique power just for this stage. So why does all this matter? I mean, these different timelines, these legal procedures, what's the big picture? Well, it cuts to the very heart of what we mean by justice, liberty, and what it means to have a clock ticking on your life. We have to be crystal clear on this difference. Pretrial remand is for one thing: investigation. The person is legally, completely presumed innocent. A post-trial sentence, that's punishment. It only happens after someone has been found guilty. Mixing up those two things completely undermines the justice system. Every single day a person spends in detention before a trial impacts their life in a huge way. Their job, their family, their reputation, and all this is happening while they are still, in the eyes of the law, innocent. The longer these periods get, the more strain is put on that fundamental idea of innocent until proven guilty. And that brings us to the final critical question. We've got 42 days, 49 days, 60 days. Do any of these timelines strike the perfect balance between giving the state the time it needs to investigate a crime and protecting the fundamental liberty of a citizen who hasn't been convicted of anything? That is the question at the very core of these holding patterns.